After 7 months, we finally have our first look at the production-ready Hyundai Ioniq 3. This is going to be Hyundai's new, small, kind of crossover, kind of hatchback EV, specifically designed for the European market. Whether or not we will ever see this car in the United States remains to be seen, but I'll keep my fingers crossed. So the car was just unveiled today in Milan, Italy, and it stays fairly true to the concept car that we saw 7 months ago. Yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed. It's a little taller. It looks more SUV-ish versus the more Veloster hatchback styling of the Concept 3. But overall, I think it's a really sharp-looking car. Gone are the retractable door handles of previous models like Ioniq 5, Ioniq 9, and EV9. Here we just have a simple little opening that you stick your hand into. You likely push on a little pad on the back and the door opens. I really like that. The vehicle we're seeing in all of the publicity shots of the car is a Ioniq 3 N-Line, so this is not an N version. This is not a sporty, fast car. This is just the N-Line, which gets all the sporty styling that you also get with the N. This is a very small car. It's designed to be a city car. It's actually smaller than the outgoing Kona Electric. It's smaller than the original Kona, which was a pretty small car. And it's also smaller than the competition with the Chevrolet Bolt, as well as the Nissan Leaf. So the overall dimensions, length is 4.155 meters in the base trim, 4.17 meters in the N-Line trim. The wheelbase is 2.68 meters. Height is 1.5 meters. Width is 1.8 meters. Starting with the front end, I'm seeing a lot of styling cues from the refreshed Ioniq 6 with the thin corner LED daytime running lights. Looks like you have 4 pixels across the center of the car, which again in Morse code represents H. Looking around the back, you don't have a full width LED light bar, but similar to the front, you have the LED lights in the corners as well as the 4 pixels across the center, which appear to do double duty as a third brake light. Like the Concept 3, we have that duckbill spoiler. The N-Line here has a large diffuser down low. From the side, like in the Concept 3, the greenhouse comes to a very sharp point in the back. This is kind of their first car to utilize their new Art of Steel design language that they've been talking about for the last year or so. Blacked out A pillar, B pillar, and C pillar for that floating roof line. From the side, honestly, it kind of reminds me of like a mix of Kia EV6 and Genesis GV60. So let's talk about some of the specs. 400 volts, it's not a high voltage car like Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 6. And it's going to be available in 2 battery capacities, 42.2 kilowatt hours and 61 kilowatt hours, giving it a WLTP range rating of 344 kilometers or 213 miles, and with the larger battery, 496 kilometers or 308 miles. Now, for reference, the outgoing Kona Electric has a 65 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that car is marginally larger than this. So in order to achieve that 308 mile range rating with a battery as small as 61 kilowatt hours, the driver would have to average about 5 miles per kilowatt hour, which seems a little unrealistic to me, but WLTP range ratings are almost always super liberal. They always overinflate range ratings. So I think realistically, with this size battery pack, you'll probably see closer to 260, 270 miles of range, but I would love to be surprised. Now, to charge that battery pack, 29 to 30 minutes from 10 to 80% for both. Kind of underwhelming, but it is on par with the new Chevrolet Bolt, and it is a little faster than the new Nissan Leaf. So it's class competitive. It's going to have an 11 kilowatt AC charger on board, 22 kilowatts optional apparently, and both are going to feature vehicle to X, which we have seen on Kia EV9, and the Ioniq 9 is capable of that, but we haven't really seen too much implementation of that here in the US. But this does mean that you will be able to power your home and use it as a battery backup if you do choose to do so. Now, if speed is what you're looking for, this car is not going to have it. It's rated at 143 horsepower, 184 foot-pounds of torque going only to the front wheels. Front wheel drive only as far as we know so far, but based on what we see under the hood, it looks like a front-wheel drive car. Also in the trunk, the well underneath the floor is super deep, so there's likely no place to put a motor back there. Now, moving on to the interior, this is where it gets really interesting from my perspective. As far as we know, this is going to be the first car that Hyundai launches with the new Plios Connect operating system for the infotainment system. So what you're seeing here on the center console is exactly that. And for many of you who have been in a Tesla before, you're going to say, yep, this looks identical to a Tesla. And you're not wrong. But what we have here that Teslas don't have is hardware buttons for HVAC controls. It looks like heated and ventilated seats are a toggle on each side of the display there, which is really nice because those are going to be the most used buttons in the car. And then it looks like you have a volume and a tuning knob as well. For me, this is bare minimum of what I would want for hard controls. Something that's nice to see is that they didn't move to on-screen shifting. You do have a physical shifting stalk on the right side of the steering wheel. We did kind of see that in some early development iterations of Plios that were shown off at auto shows. Don't worry though, Plios Connect is going to offer Android Auto and Apple CarPlay for those of you who want to use that. And supposedly, Hyundai is going to be one of the first mainstream automakers to implement Apple CarPlay Ultra, which kind of allows CarPlay to take over all the screens in the car, and you can operate things like HVAC controls through CarPlay instead of having to going back to the home screen. So if that's the case here, that's really cool. You're not getting a driver display like you traditionally get in the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, Ioniq 9 behind the steering wheel. Instead, they've moved up to a thin little eyebrow screen near the windshield. And this is going to have things like your speed, navigation instructions, music information. So I think that's a nice balance between the driver display and a head-up display. It's definitely a cost-cutting measure, which is fine because this car is going to have to be cheap in order to compete, especially in Europe with all the cheap Chinese competitors now. Looking around the rest of the cabin, the center console looks very narrow, and it looks very similar to kind of Ioniq 6, the long linear center console that connects to the dashboard. You've got a Qi wireless charging pad there up front, a couple cup holders in line. What's interesting is the front cup holder has writing on it that says unlock and lock, and there's some posts around the cup holder. It looks like it would allow you to twist it. Maybe that's an insert to allow you to put a bigger cup into that same space. I don't really know, but that's interesting. There's another level of storage underneath the floating center console there. So also very reminiscent of Ioniq 6. The HVAC vents look like they have nice little knurled controls for closing and opening and directing the airflow. Steering wheel retains all the buttons you would want for cruise control. On the left, drive modes there. Lane keep assist, and on the right you have the controls for that driver display, as well as voice controls. Behind the steering wheel you have your paddle shifters. Hyundai, world famous for their great paddle shifters and their multiple levels of regeneration. This will likely feature the newest version of iPedal, iPedal 3.0, which will allow the car to come to a complete stop in any level of regeneration. And it will also use the radar sensors to bring the car to a complete stop when in a different regen level like 1, 2, or 3. Looking over at the driver armrest, 4 window switches, always nice to see. Window controls, memory seats. What's interesting is on the left stalk for windshield wipers, it looks like there's like some little LED lights on there, and it looks like there's numbers. It's hard to tell because the image gets kind of grainy there, but I can't tell if that's for showing you your windshield wiper setting or if it's regen level. I don't think it would be regen level because you're seeing that on the center console, but there's definitely something there, and I'm not really sure exactly what that is. The side mirrors on this car are interestingly very squat, very wide and very short. So that'll be interesting to see in person eventually. But the overall dashboard design, I think, is really cool. Looks like there's a ton of storage. You can see on the passenger side, there's a big opening there in the center of the dashboard, and it looks like it goes right across to the driver's side too. So you might be able to store some stuff there behind the steering wheel if you want. Looking up at the overhead console, Something really interesting here that got my attention. It looks like it's going to have a digital rear view mirror, but right below it, it looks like there's a camera, and it looks like the camera is pointing towards the passenger seat here. I don't understand why in a left-hand drive car the camera would point towards the passenger seat. Maybe being a pre-production model, it's using the camera that would be in a right-hand drive car to watch the driver's face to make sure they're paying attention, because that is mandated in many countries now. So not sure what that discrepancy is, but it does appear to be a camera there. And I'm not seeing anything behind the steering wheel like in the 2025 Ioniq 5 or the new Ioniq 9, which watches your face. So it looks like they might be moving from a steering wheel mounted camera to an overhead mounted camera, which should hopefully work better than the existing version in Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 9, which does cause a lot of issues for a lot of people. I am sad to see that they didn't get away from the start-stop button, having just experienced the Tesla Model Y a few months ago, which obviously doesn't have one. I have really grown to think that they're unnecessary. It's a waste of money, and it really doesn't do a whole lot to the EV experience. Honestly, I preferred getting in the Tesla and just having everything come to life. So kind of bummed that they're not getting rid of the start-stop button, but that is what it is. The seats here in the N line look to be a mix of fabric and micro suede material. Looking at the rear seat, because of the styling, it is probably going to feel a little claustrophobic back there, just because that belt line angles up really steeply right next to the rear seat passengers' heads. You do have that little window up in the corner to give you a little bit of light, but you're not going to get too much light with all that plastic paneling right next to your head. And resting your arm out the window there is probably going to be pretty uncomfortable with it like pointing downwards. But the seats look like they are very steeply reclined. There is an armrest. Rear seat vents, a couple USB-C ports, some kind of fishnet pockets on the backs of the seats, but nothing too out of the ordinary here. It does look like up above, because this car does have a panoramic glass roof with a shade. They do have some pretty big cutouts for your heads, so maybe headroom won't be too compromised in the car despite having the panoramic glass roof, but we'll have to wait and see what that's like in person. Looking at the trunk now, looks relatively decently sized. What's really impressive is that the floor, when removed, opens up a cavernous volume down below, which you can fit, shown here, a roller bag into. So this has significantly more space than the Kona ever has, which is really nice. And that's, like I said earlier, due to the fact that it's front wheel drive and all those components that would live under the floor there, like an Ioniq 5, are now moved into the trunk of the car. So that's the Ioniq 3. We don't know pricing yet. We don't know when it's going to go on sale, but this car has a lot of competition, especially in Europe now. So Hyundai is going to have to be really competitive with pricing if it wants to compete with the likes of all these Chinese cars that are going on sale in Europe and the UK, because this category is cutthroat there. I really hope at some point I'll get to see one in person, but who knows if that'll happen, considering the fact that it might not be coming to the US. So I might have to go to Europe to see this one, but there's a bunch of other cars over there that I want to see, so might have to make a trip out of it and just check out a bunch of all these cars that we don't get here in the US. So if you guys want more Ioniq related content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to check out my store at ioniqguy.com for all sorts of accessories for your Hyundai, Kia, or Genesis that I design and manufacture myself. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.